I am Greg Brooks, CMO at SearchTides, and I'm joined by two esteemed folks from the SEO space, and Smarty of Smarty Marketing, and Bart Gorlevich. Nailed it?
You nailed
Nailed
it.
it.
You're killing
Nailed
it.
it. It was a recent trip to Prague. That's what it was. It kind of just ironed it all out. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us today. We're basically going to have a conversation about what is the largest trend in SEO today, which is, hey, there used to be the search result page. You used to have 10 results on it, maybe 7, depending on it. And now people are searching differently. Google's involved in this. There's lots of different generative AI options for people to acquire knowledge online. There's AI overviews also. What do we do with it? And so I think I'll probably start it off with you, Anne. Is it possible to maybe give everybody a walkthrough about, okay, first let's lay the land. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of the platforms that exist. And then maybe you can touch on a little bit what makes AI overviews a little bit different than some of the other platforms.
Sure. So the first thing, I'm sure we all found out about generative AI ever since ChatGPT was introduced into our lives. I don't know, Bart will be able to talk more about that, but I don't know the statistics about how many people do actually use it at this point. I feel like the evolution ever since we're always 1 year, right, into ChatGPT era. And I don't think it is developing as fast as we thought a year ago. We thought it would just be a huge revolution and disruption to our industry. It wasn't so far. People are still using search very well. And I did say back then that it will take time to break many habits, searching habits, especially with older generations, those that actually can buy and convert online. So but that's still a reality that we're going to live in going forward, however fast it is going to be disrupting our lives and our searching behaviors and our careers and all of that. So what it does is actually has a mind of its own, but it's simply, and it answers questions and completes tasks that we ask those generative AI platforms by providing prompts. Now, Google was a little bit late to the party, so they rushed their own AI product right away, and they wanted that product to be part of search results. So as a result, we now have 2 core AI products that user-facing. We don't talk about AI influencing the algorithm at this point because that's a separate story. So we have 2 user-facing products, Gemini, that used to be Bart. That is a separate product where you can actually provide prompts, and it will, just like ChatGPT, complete tasks, answer questions, whatever you ask it to do. And there is AI overviews, which are now part of organic search results. They started as a generative experience as an experiment, and it was private, opt-in only. Now it's public, and in public not just to people who are logged into Google, but also to all United States residents when you're searching from this region, whether you are logged in or not. So they're pretty disruptive right now because on many levels, when someone is searching, now they see those AI overviews on top of search results. Then there is a featured snippet answering the same question quickly. And then there are people also ask results. And then somewhere below that, we start seeing organic search results finally. So number 1 is not even as visible as it ever used to be. It's not completely a new problem for SEO because featured snippets have been around for about 7-10 years now. They were pretty disruptive because they provide quick answer, removing the need of click at all. People also ask, all other blended search results have always been our pain for organic search results because that's what we are optimizing for. Now, the good news for AI overviews, and previously they were search generative experience, they're exactly doing what the experiment told us they were doing, and that there is a patent as well. They are summarizing Google search results. So in the core to being in AI overviews is to actually optimize the same practices that we were using for organic search results apply here as well. Only a big difference is that they are much less predictive than organic search results. So this is the problem we are going to be facing going forward, because it doesn't look like Google is going to give up on this AI overviews anytime soon. So that's something we're going to be learning to optimize for, to calculate clicks, to understand how to measure results, to understand how to evaluate our efforts, SEO efforts, and all of that. So that's the gist of what is going on in terms of an SEO standpoint, not the whole, and not as a whole.
No, totally. And that's a really helpful recap, Anne. Thank you for that. And I think you said a lot of amazing things. One thing that was in there that I think is really important is that AI overviews is essentially a summary of the search results. So it's coming from the search results in some capacity, whereas other LLMs are not. The big question, Bart, that I think everybody has is, okay, so if it's a derivative of or summary of or related to, is there any sort of insight that we can take away or predictability around when that's going to occur, or how we can kind of optimize for something like that?
Yeah, I took so many notes. That's all fascinating. And I've got the benefit of having these conversations like 8 times a day.
Perfect. Well, hopefully it's the first time today.
Let's, for the sake of this, say yes, but I love them all. So that's it's not a bad thing. So first of all, and thanks for that, Anne. I have a set of my own perspectives. We've been researching Google AO since 2016, before it was even AO. So I remember 2016, Las Vegas, Angag that was keynoting, and I found this conversation a few weeks before on Quora, talking about Google being AI, being an AI product in 2024. And again, 8 years ago, completely cuckoo, but seeing a lot of aspects. Then it was RankBrain was introduced. Google actually switched from algo to machine learning, which I have to admit, I hated as an idea. I was like, this is so dumb. In hindsight, I'm going to be very honest about that. But ever since that moment, Google realigned completely. And the way we look at that, we still see as AIO or that whole change as evolution of search, when realistically, and this is going to be a lot of very harsh opinions from me, but search that we know organically with 10 links is going to be useful moving down the line, but it's going to be just an interface. So now Perplexity is using that interface for search. Most of the AI tools like ChatGPT, SearchGPT, they would use Bing when it comes to ChatGPT as interface. But these search engines build their own, in a way, agents or their own solutions to search. So when we have 10 blue links, it's a very outdated solution, and it was outdated in 2018. We've seen massive changes with how people interact, a lot of clicking back and forward, and a lot of confusion. So first of all, I'm gonna start slow, and you're gonna see why I'm mentioning that. First of all, I think clicks as a metric are completely dead, because when you sell, let's say you're selling remarkable tablets for note taking, and you look at like clicks, 90% of that sale right now, or not 90% of that interaction with your product happens outside of your domain. So one, why would you measure clicks? You can Google podcast with Fabrice Canel and my name. I won't pronounce it. And there is a whole podcast from 2-3 months ago when Fabrice was supposed to talk about something else. He's a spokesperson for Bing and the principal manager of Bing, but he went on a very, very long rant about clicks being dead. And I didn't get that fully until I started to connect that. So first of all, I think we should switch, because with Google AO, with Perplexity, with so many ways to interact with your product, brand, whatever that is, I think measuring clicks is tricky. And I'm going to give you an example. Google AIO in medical field is present in around 50% of the queries. So if you search for symptoms, whatever that is, you will see Google AIO. But a fraction of these queries or prompts or questions are getting massive engagement that these websites haven't seen before, because they go through that filter of Google AO. So if you get these clicks, and this depends on a lot of behavioral factors, not something that we can measure with EAT, but if you need more data about that specific topic, this traffic is extremely engaged, beats a lot of benchmark when it comes to engagement, when it comes to conversions and so on. But there is a good chunk of queries where Google AO shows up and you get no clicks, because that never needed to be a click in a way. But we're panicking about the first one, and we're not, sorry, we're very happy about the first one, but we don't understand the second one. So we're still looking at that. I had 1 million clicks, now I have 800,000 clicks, what's happening? So that's one thing that we need to completely shift away from. And if you can imagine Perplexity, other tools, that's one. But yeah, go on, Greg, I see you have a question.
I'm going to pause you for a second because that was a lot of really dense information. I just want to unpack it for everybody here.
Thank you, sorry.
So the first thing is sound the alarm. There, you know, we're not doing clicks. So really, I think the big benchmark that both Anne and Bart have kind of vocalized so far is that also, sorry, headphone users, for that I usually only do bursts that are not as loud. But the big benchmark that's been uncovered so far is ultimately there's shifts in behavior in one of two ways, either going to different platforms that's not Google, everything from ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever it is, as well as a combination of having what are called zero-click searches, which might be many, many results for an AI overviews. It's going to become a process where it's almost guaranteed that that's going to take away clicks from organic. But the bigger question is, does that actually matter? And I think some of the examples that Bart's gotten into so far is, okay, if you make the same amount of money, if you get the same type of conversions or even more, or it's more relevant traffic compared to average traffic, where does that vote on there? So I'm going to pass it back to you, Bart, and say, okay, we're not having a conversation about clicks anymore. Then what are we having a conversation about, and how are we presenting that to clients?
I love it. So it's a very simple aspect. We're shifting from queries and content to questions and answers, like in real life. So we had to learn to build queries, and some of us, I'm assuming Anne as well, or became masters in like side commands and all of that. We don't need that. Perplexity can do 20 Google searches and then search Reddit and YouTube and whatever. They can do that for us. So that's the like AI agent approach, very basic when it comes to Perplexity, but that's something. So we need to provide answers. So now when you look at that from a very simple perspective, Google AO, when you search for a query or a search term, plays by a different set of rules. They are not limited to that one URL. They are limited to finding answers to not only your question, but most likely what your next step is. What, like if you, again, Greg, from last webinar, if you search for what is Temu, you're not wondering like the definition of that marketplace. You probably are thinking whether you should buy that $5 massage gun and these $7 king mattress, and anything like, what's happening? Can I add my credit card? So when you search for that, Google AO will build a different answer than anything that was possible before, because they will tell you, okay, this is a marketplace. It's so cheap because this and that. There is some controversy because of this. This is a different approach, but you get a snippet of text that will result in no clicks to New York Times.com that ranks #1 for that query, but it will answer your questions. So we have to switch completely from creating editorial content for optimizing for what is Temu, which is just by definition a wrong path, to understanding context in which a user is asking and the intent, because that intent comes from context. So my context with what is Temu is I downloaded the app. I'm wondering, do I have to call Bank of America tomorrow to see that something's wrong? So that context shapes a lot. So getting into Google AO is extremely easy once you understand that. And there are multiple, like within ZipTide.dev, we've built a whole algo that can then decodes that, because Google has to show that in the answer. So this is a completely different game than SEO, but I feel like what Anne said is so true when, and I'm almost done with that. So when we switch, we have to talk about like search habits shifting. I think the biggest challenge right now that we have is both organizations, companies, marketers, VPs of marketing, and they all still try to build links, create more content. When Google is openly for a year now saying we have too much content, we have too little answers, we're still measuring clicks rather than engagement. So I think this is the change that we're like in the middle of, and I'm so excited because I feel like it's a change that addresses a lot of problems we didn't have solution for a while, but it's definitely not something we can solve from the SEO space we know for the past like 20 years.
Yeah, that's
Well,
really interesting.
Yeah, I would argue with that being not an SEO, because we have been optimizing for search intent for so long. We are thinking about context for so long. We have been doing it. And when you talk about not building links, it's not just about links, but all other signals. And I would like to ask that question because I don't have the answer for what happens when a lot of brands give those answers. What happens? Okay, now there are not many of them doing that, but what happens when Google has too many answers now because everyone keeps talking about giving answers and understanding the context? While there are a few brands that can do it, it's clear they will be showing up as answers, and then people will be able to discover those brands. What happens when everyone does that, which happened with keywords at some point when no one was optimizing them and were easily ranking, and now everyone is doing them, and now Google has too much content. So it's almost like we're going the same path, but just using a little bit different concepts.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Anne. If I can hop in.
Sorry, go on, Greg.
No, it is great. It is great. Big quote from today: time is circular and smarty. So I just want to recap the last few minutes for everybody, just to make sure that we're on the same page, or just to make sure, just for the viewers and listeners. Ultimately, we're having a conversation, and this is critical because we're about to go into two different areas that are relevant to every single person on here. The first area we're about to go into is, okay, how does this pertain to client services? And then the second area we're about to go into is, okay, what about the lack of traffic? So we're about to get to those. And the reason why we've taken this pathway that we have is because these things require open conversations from experts such as Anne and Bart to really even find that common ground and then transform that in a way to be able to talk conversations about clients or what you should be focusing on. So to recap a couple of things, big headline number one, keyword optimization has not necessarily been the only way to play the game for a while, but now it's overwhelmingly not the case because lots of different stuff has come up in between. And when we were talking previously, you made really great points about conversational searches, which was something from 6-8 years ago with things like Siri or voice search and things like that. So that sort of thing is now really hitting a crescendo. The search results, Bart's, to your point, AI overviews, GPT models, it's more about providing answers to specific questions, which was going to sound very similar to conversational tones because that is how someone asks a question. So now we're kind of crescendoing to this one area. Okay, it's about questions, it's about answers to them. I think if we have historically looked at Google's algorithm, we'd probably look at it with really 3 or 4 different components, depending on how you group them together. One of them would be link focused, essentially, domain authority, domain rating, whatever it is. Another one would be the technical stuff. We think that's in there too. And another one would really be content. And you could flip content into a couple different things. You could tack on page optimization in there. You could tack content itself. You could put EEAT in there. So that's kind of like our nebulous bucket. Now we're talking about a shift of what's actually on the search results page. And then, Anne, I think you've asked this really, really eloquently. Okay, so now there'll be a trend towards questions and answers. And now we're back to the tiebreaker. And so what does the tiebreaker become?
From these. So Anne, I love what you said, and I think this is such a good conversation. You said that we were optimizing for intent. And I couldn't disagree more, because the intent we understand in SEO is transactional, conversational. So this is my question. When you want to buy this is a very weird massage gun for like very high vibration that works with whatever. And I know
sounds
this
like Timu.
it's actually Amazon, but yeah, probably you can find one on Temu as well. So if you understand that intent, if you understand why in my when Greg asked me about my weird hobbies, I was like really holding my breath for a second. But when you think about why I would buy that, or you have this device that most people wouldn't know even what that is for vagus nerve, understanding why in my life, what happened in my life for me to consider that purchase.
That's exactly the content strategy that SEO has been doing for a while now, solving the problems, not necessarily optimizing for keywords. Keywords do help. They do inform us on, because we may not be aware of all those problems, of all those searching paths that take you to the brand. That's why we're still using keywords, because they do show us what people are searching and which problems they are researching and where our products are in that path that can be helpful. So it has been around. It hasn't been talked maybe that much.
Do you have an example of a brand or website that does it? Because the way I see that, and I hear what you're saying, the way I see that is we're optimizing for massage gun, we're optimizing for paper tablet, but we're not optimizing really for what's happening for me to discover it.
How to deal with back pain, how to deal with other problems that are being solved by the products. That's exactly what that was our recommendation to the client for a while now, especially with all those longer queries that Google doesn't even know about, because that's how the searching behavior has been becoming more complicated for a while now. And we know that Google doesn't know how many third of yearly queries. They are all new to Google because people are searching in different ways. They're not using keywords. They're pronouncing their queries to their phones and initiate search like that. So it's not exactly something disruptive. It is being faster developing now with AI. But again, I don't have the statistics for the adoption of all those platforms. I'm sure you may have some. Mm-hmm.
So depending, like I feel like we can so adoption is one, and ChatGPT like exploded a few months ago. So it was growing very slowly. Now it's like exponentially growing. But with ChatGPT, and for people in the audience, if you have paid version of ChatGPT, please write this prompt: show me the latest news from the New York Times. Not harmful. Nothing can happen. Just see what's going to happen. So now we also look into fragmentation of these, but that's a whole other conversation. Coming back to this, even when it comes to this massage gun example, when people search, and this is from my Reddit company, this is what I see, like Reddit is catching, like if you look at Google Trends, Reddit is touching tips with YouTube. So people search less for YouTube, more for Reddit. So this is a search demand. But we search for Reddit, in my opinion, in the research that I'm doing, because we want that hyper-personalized content. So for example, with the massage gun or with the car, I'm going to search for what's the SUV. I'm in Austin. That's a completely different case than I would be in Europe, size-wise, because here, yeah, you know, Greg. So what's the SUV for 2 kids,
Wait,
2 dogs, or whatever?
because bigger is better. Hold on a second. No.
Yeah, like I don't have a
How
problem
much
with a
space
parking
do you have right
here.
now? Do you like that
I
more or less?
We are both European here, so you
know what I mean. But so we have this hyper personalization, this very complex user journeys, at least 7 touch points. We want to look at all the reviews, raw data. That's all outside of our domains. And when I search for these, like Google AIO, what it does, it understands what's not directly coming from my question. And that's because they base it on millions of interactions. So they know your next step. They very often know your previous step. And what we've seen with SGE, with follow-up questions, that was so addictive and immersive that they had all of these 7 touch points. You had YouTube, Reddit, everything within google.com, so they could track all of your steps, shockingly. But it was very quick to start from the lower back example and to land on a page where you want to buy something, and you could go through a YouTube video, Reddit content.
I will just add one thing. Do you know, like they have Think with Google or something like that? I forgot the domain name. They
my favorite research on, yeah.
Yes, 2008 or maybe 2010, they published a case study of a woman buying a car. Took her 100 something touch points So it's not, that's what I'm trying to say. It's been around. Yes, it is getting different. It is getting more diverse, more personalized in the first place, because we have been dealing with personalized results for a while now, but now it's much more personalized and going to be even more personalized to people because AI is learning from every person that is using it. So it is kind of faster now, but it's nothing new. People have been using, maybe not Reddit, but they have been using Reddit, YouTube. They have been using review sites. They always search for any product name before buying it, and then they get distracted by affiliate sites reviewing that product. So it has been around. It has been difficult to get your product measured and your traffic not exactly representative of what is going on, because people sell on Amazon, people sell cross market everywhere. It hasn't been just your domain for a while now. So it's not exactly an innovation in the term that it has been around.
But if
These
you
are
think
really
about
great
that, you can
points.
do.
These are really great points. And I
Yeah.
want to bring the conversation to a couple specific places. So I had written down to talk about something about traffic. And after this conversation, so just to get everybody again aligned on the same page, we're having a conversation right now around, I think, the history of what's gotten us to today. And I think if we can fast forward to today, we would look at things in a couple different lenses. We would say right now, on today's date, traffic is different and the buyer journey is different than it has been in the past. We might have some different beliefs about when that was the case, or like how intensely that was the case. But in terms of where we are now, we have a complex buyer journey. And I think in the past, a website has had more of the onus on providing answers to unasked questions. And I think more recently, especially with AI overviews, and maybe even as a response to the GPT models, now Google is saying, hey, we're going to take more of that onus, or we're going to continue to take more and more of that onus, and we're going to try to answer your unasked questions. And so that's where things are flipping, which brings us to today. And I'd like to just offer this up, and whoever wants to go first can kind of take it. What do we do? What do we do? And this can go in a couple different directions. You can talk about strategy, or you can talk about measurement. And I think both of those are viable directions to take this question in.
I don't have great answers for measurement for sure. I'm still waiting for Bart to create all those great tools
And
for us
just to clarify before you hop in. Exactly. And sorry, I'm going to give it right back to you. When I say measurement, let's do it in the context of like campaign success, or, someone has a client. This is what we are targeting, and this is what a key metric is that we want to be held to. So, Anne, I'm going to pass it back to you. Let's talk shop about strategy.
Just a quick thing for like measuring the results. I don't have good answers here for two reasons. First of all, I'm an SEO. I'm not a conversion expert. I'm not sales manager. I'm an SEO. I'm optimizing websites so that they show up in Google. Possibly in the future, we'll be also optimizing for ChatGPT or whatnot. So we do that. And going back to a point that it's not completely new, anything that's going on right now, is that I think back in 2012, I wrote an article about answering questions. And there, my big point was, do not just use keyword research tools. Everyone has access to that data. Talk to your clients, make own surveys, record anything that your customer support team says about what people are wondering about when it comes to problems, your products. All of that should be recorded and be part of your website. So it is something that we've been thinking about for a while now. As for measuring that, back to that point, SEOs are usually islands. I hope that is going to change, and I've been talking about for a while. We don't have access to how A/B testing, conversion optimization, social media teams. In many ways, PR teams are part of something else. So we have that little job that companies do not know what we're doing. We're trying. We don't even talk to executives. So in most cases, we talk to in-house SEOs who do not know better. So it has that disconnect. I would love to say, hey, SEO strategies should be measured by conversions or by sales or by like anything like that, ROI. We don't have access to that. We don't have impact on that as well. So at this point, what we can track is still clicks always. Yes, we have some data on conversions for Google Analytics, but we do not optimize for conversions. That's the point. It's on the client side. And we do brand mentions, brand visibility. Measuring that is a great point as well. But again, it's not just us. Clients do social media, PR on their own. So I don't have a good answer on how SEOs should adapt to that. For all of our clients, we treat them every differently, and we do our best to be part of other teams. We do outreach for the clients to bring their conference in front of, like, to build links. Bart, don't hate me, to to that conference page. But at that point, I say we do not just create a list of those websites with their contact information. Look, there are social media profiles. Please ask your social media team to interact with them. Those will be better conversions for us, more brand mentions. So it will work when all of that is integrated. Then SEO can be a good part of other teams that is also helping SEO visibility as well, organic search visibility. At some point, we will have to come up with more things we optimize for. So that's for measurement. That's the problem we have been facing, regardless of where Google is going. We have been facing them for a long time. As for the strategy, that's my point. I don't see anything drastically new we have to be doing. We do have to cross-channel. We do have to sell more than just on our website. Lots of platforms that allow that to do it and measure results for you. You do have to be everywhere, but you had to do that 10 years ago as well. You have to work on your brand visibility because AI is highlighting what they know about. If they do not know you, they will not surface you in your answers. You have to answer questions, and you have to understand what the researching journeys of your customers. So it's not exactly anything new that this AI revolution is bringing to the table that we hadn't been doing for a while now.
Totally. Well, thank you for that, Anne. Thank you. No, that's wonderful. I think one of the big challenge, you've talked about one of the big challenges that SEOs have always had, and I think you said it in a really concise way when you said SEOs have traditionally lived on an island and they've kind of been in isolation. And this is something that we've noticed a lot of years ago at SearchTides. Companies don't actually want for SEOs to live on islands. They don't actually want for SEOs to basically be like, hey, my job is to get traffic to your website, and so now that's your problem. I think that as marketing has evolved, what we've seen with companies is kind of this demand. Well, you could call it demand, or you could basically call it, if we have a prospective client who wants to work with us and our pitch is coming in and somebody's talking about traffic, and then it's sort of on, and then it's going to go where it goes. And we're able to come in and talk about revenue and money. And of course, the trade-off for that is access and responsibility of things that we don't fully control or dictate. We've found that those tend to be two different conversations. But I think in terms of the ethos that you're talking about, which is essentially how can we, what are we trying to draw from? We're ultimately trying to create engagement and awareness and then bring that to a converting platform. I'm in full alignment with you. So that was really well said from that perspective. Bart, from your perspective, you've ascertained the bold one-liner that clicks are dead because my friend said so. Just kidding, what are we using instead? And what's the bottom line? Put you directly in it. You have a client, they're looking for a result. You've just said, hey, this campaign success is not going to be measured based off of clicks. And they're going to say, okay, how are we going to measure it? And then, you know, how do you kind of think about that?
I have a slide, and I think that might be easier, but I cannot share my screen. So that's kind of
Okay,
awkward.
I'll let you share your screen, and then everybody in the chat who had the over under on 37 minutes, if you had over 37 minutes before Bart slide, you're right. You got it. Here, let me make sure that you can.
Oh, I think I have it. I think I have
Can
it.
you?
Okay.
Because I'm
Yeah,
not seeing an option right now.
I do have it. So
Okay, cool.
just
All right,
to, I
perfect.
don't want to go through the whole thing, but basically when you would look at how this looks like, and this is very quickly done slide. So let's imagine that the case that you're talking about, and you should see a slide with hammer, hopefully.
Yes,
So imagine
it's an
that
electric vehicle. Shout out to GMC.
It's 10,000 pounds in 3 seconds to 60. So I don't think it should be allowed to exist. But anyhow,
Is this American muscle that we're looking right now?
I'm in Texas and I wouldn't buy this. But anyhow, when we look at these this path, the interface that people are using is changing. So most likely this is not going to be 10 links. That might be Google AO, Perplexity. That might be something else. There are multiple other things coming up in the next few months. But the topic is that we're using that interface to do the searching and reading and going through that for us. That's kind of the way I understand that. We're using Google AO because it read, in quotes, all of these other things. And okay, for your query, these are the 3, 6, 7 paragraphs you need to know. So that's one, but we go through a journey. So we actually go through multiple points. So being in these points is critical because we can optimize for ChatGPT, which is like basically Bing minus websites that don't accept like New York Times example. So you can optimize as much for Bing as well, for Bing or ChatGPT. But if you're blocking ChatGPT in robots like New York Times, that traffic is not going to you. So that's
that
sometimes
was a trick question before. So just for everybody there, I put in, please show me I also noticed, Bart, you are not polite with ChatGPT. Good luck in the robot wars. But anyways, I said, please show me the latest news from New York Times. And they don't have access to that up to October 2020. I didn't want to take away from your slide if you want to put that back up.
No, all good. 82% of publishers block ChatGPT. The ones that don't, half of them have a deal. So now we're looking at a massive fragmentation of that. So that's also a case where we have to choose our kind of alliances, but that's a whole other topic. So coming back to GMC, they came to me, they want to make money. They want to sell more of these freakish electric vehicles. So the conversation that we need to have is who buys them? What are the dimensions? Which needs do we meet very well as a product to sell these cars? Because you're not going to sell them to a soccer mom, I hope, or a business guy. This is a specific aspect. So what we've done here is we've researched a few thousand Reddit threads. We created a database, simple RAG, and we started basically structuring that based on like stage per stage. The biggest competitor of this car is Rivian, which is interesting. So you have to adjust your messaging to that. And it's Rivian because both of these folks who would buy that value adventure, but some of them value normal adventure rather than hammer adventure. So there are 3 points that make this car sell. So it's people who love hammer, and you can imagine, Greg, being in the US for a bit, who these people are. The stereotype is strong. Maybe it's recorded.
Patriots? Is that what we're talking
about? You can use that term. Yeah, so that's one, but that actually came out of real user conversation. What Anne said, listening to that audience. Then secondly, people who want to flash out. So most of them actually had sports cars. They had like Corvettes and whatever, but now they want to be flashy. They want to be very unique, but they want something else. They want variety, and we can find multiple other aspects of that. And now this conversation happens, as you can imagine, outside of gmc.com, where I haven't seen a lot of conversations happening at all. So we have to understand that and then highlight what works and kind of soften what doesn't. So the problem that this car has is people think I'm not going to be able to park this beast anywhere. So that's what they've created, 4 wheels that turn, and you can park sideways with what they call crab walk. So you can now see the messaging play. So first of all, we have to highlight what works. We have to soften what doesn't. You can park in a tight space using crab walk with this 10,000 pounds vehicle. Maybe it's going to work for someone. But so that's one. But then you need to be able to visit these conversations and see where they are. That's why Reddit is so huge. That's why I was really skeptical towards Reddit. And now I have a company. You can visit ogsmedia.com with Brent, who's an owner of Search Engine Journal. We see more traction with these conversations very often than with anything else, even in very niche topics, because we want hyper-personalized answer. So the way I would structure that, SEO play is amazing for that finishing touches in this space, but we need to understand why people bounce off before. So I think what is changing, and that's actually my whole team is trying to figure this out as well, is SEO now is not just your domain. We cannot really pretend it's the case. So what Anne Smarty said about the case, and I actually remember from 2010 on Think with Google, 100 touch points, that would probably take 2 months. Now you can do that within 20 minutes with Perplexity, because you can ask, is this car better for dogs? Is this one, whatever, what's the charging time? What's the state? Like, you can ask very specific questions. And that's why Reddit is just such a beast when it comes to traffic now, because most of the questions I had about my specific interest, and I have way too many, 90% of them are only living on Reddit. That's the depth. That's the problem with SEO, where we go after high traffic keywords and we kind of strip down the details. And it's difficult to create something hyper personalized and have visits, because when you don't have visits, it's index bloat, it's getting the index. So that's the play I think we have right now. There are multiple ways to address that. And I think lastly, targeting multiple LLMs one by one, and I started with that logic a year ago or longer ago, doesn't work out, because now I have 5 different LLMs on my mobile. I have 50 LLMs on my laptop, and they're all connected to the web through different tools. So when we look at that, within 6 months, this is going to be fairly normal. With Apple Intelligence, with other solutions, you will be able to plug in your search solution, other LLMs, whatever you want. So it's not really about, I believe, just either rankings or traffic. It's just basically about understanding multiple problems and questions people might have while searching for whatever you sell and being there. And whatever that is, whether that's Perplexity, chat, they're going to find you. Don't block them in robots if you want them. Lastly, when it comes to traffic, Fabrice from Bing was very, very bullish on this. And I get that now, because what I started to look into a few months before that conversation is why our ultimate guides at onelead.com are dying. We had links from Google, we had links from Bing. There was no content more linked and actually more read in the history. We had 1 million reads on some of these over time. You know, original research that changed something. But we've seen in 2018-19 that basically the attention span has changed. So we had a ton of people reading that in India, a ton of people reading that in Africa, but for some reason, places where TikTok exploded didn't read Ultimate Guides. I think we can connect the dots. So we also saw that changing that into these bullet points, very kind of concise forms of content, had like addressed that. So now we measure the depth of scroll. We measure how many times we're being quoted in AOs with zip ties. So we basically see one article, how many answers do we have? We populate answers and we change this content so it's very easy to scroll rather than, like, you know, read huge blocks of text. And we have a ton of simple answers, and we map more answers from people also ask from Reddit, from conversations, and we include them into the content. So once your conversation, again, about GMC, if you published an article that talks about all the findings, all the research within that area, you will be killing it organically and you will sell these cars. But again, SEOs, unfortunately, and I'm guilty of that as well, over time, we would be, you know, off-road features for Hammer. And the question in the chat, can we use AI to build that content? You can, but the depth you're going to have with that is going to be just as with ChatGPT with no internet access, very, very shallow. So we have to now change the approach. We need to know, okay, there's 7 points we have to hit to get that person to the next step. What are these? What makes these points as a win? So for example, with Hammer, we know, okay, we have to soften these, we have to highlight the others. We get 6 clear points. We write this article and it's engaging. So it's a different set of metrics that we won't find in Ahrefs or SEMrush. And to be honest, I went through all my phases, but now I'm extremely excited because once I've built a workflow to find these points, to highlight them, it's becoming very easy and kind of more more human than it was before ever, shockingly, because we're touching on like real problems. But I can go on about this for hours, Greg. Maybe I'm gonna give it back to you, and if there are some questions, I'm happy to tackle.
No, this is great stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Bart. And so I just want to kind of play back a few things for everybody. It's pretty in line with a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on at SearchTides, which is, what does the future look like for commerce online? And we actually believe that AI is going to lead to more competition, essentially. You have fewer people that are able to make companies at smaller amounts. You have AI-assisted tools to create more output per person. And so all of this is going to lead to, okay, what do I do? And there's a variety of answers to that I'm not going to get into all of them. But one of the core pieces of it is understanding intimately the user journey and the customer journey and what pathway someone takes in order to get to the decision to purchase something or the decision to buy something. And I think if I was to take that piece and then I would say, okay, how is Bart describing that? He's basically making an argument that although that used to at some point on the internet exclusively happened via content on your website, that has not been the case, and now it's, you know, increasingly and more extremely not being the case. And so the way to adjust is to, number one, understand the user journey of the person. Number two, understand all the decision points and why some type of person is the perfect fit for a product or for a service, and what type of person is not. And then number three, that's really what you should focus your content creation on. And there's a 3B, which is, if you can do it, don't just have it be on your website. Have that be the focal point across the entire internet, all the different places that are talking about a product service, whether it's on a review site talking about, you know, Trustpilot talking about the different sorts of things, or whether it's on YouTube, or whether it's on PR articles that you have being published. So if you can do that, now this wraps it back to, you know, all the audience who has clients. It's the story that you're talking to with the prospective client is one of, here's the narrative of the future. The future is going to be about hyper-personalization. The future is, why do 98% of Americans prefer and are already planning on purchasing the GMC Hummer EV vehicle? And here's the reason why, you know, but kidding aside, this is what the future is. It's hyper-personalization. We need to meet the customer everywhere that they are, and we need to understand why they buy and why they don't. And at a minimum, that's what we need to be talking about on our website. And at a maximum, that's what we need to be talking about on the internet. And we're using our SEO abilities as an overlay on top of that, because we know how to do those things in a way that generates traffic. We know how to talk about things in a way that generates traffic. And this is a really compelling pitch compared to someone else who might be coming in and making a different type of pitch. So I think that's a really interesting you know, perspective and place that you've landed at, Bart. And I think, Anne, I'd be curious to kind of like, does it make sense to have that conversation with a client, or are we not in that right space yet? Or just general kind of like, you know, a lot of, you know, yeah. Does it make sense? Where does it not make sense?
Just a quick note here, when you were talking about meeting a customer at every decision point, understanding those touch points, it's not that you need to start doing that today or yesterday. You should have been doing it for a while now. Again, I sound like I do not understand the whole revolution of search at this point. Yes, I do. I understand things are changing, but all of these tactics have been around for a while. We have been doing that for a while. We did, for every client that comes in, we do that SERP management service, not the service, it's part of every audit that I do, understanding what people can see in search results, what people see in Reddit, because they rank like crazy for branded search. So we do that. We don't do just, hey, this is your rankings and this is where you are. We look at the whole search result page, because it shows so much of how people can be interacting with that query through. People also ask featured snippets, now AI overviews, before that video results, there were video carousels, now it's Reddit carousels, Reddit threads, hidden gems, let's call them like that, as they were supposed to be. So we understand, we have been having that conversation with clients for a while, not way before AI overviews were there, that it's not just about your domain rankings. It's not just about where your domain is ranking. It's about what people are seeing when they search for your brand name, for your product name, for your important search queries. It's the whole SERP that you need to be paying attention to, because even related searches, people also ask, they all signal of possible autocomplete results. They all signal of possible different search journeys that you should be aware of. You should know them. Researching questions, research forums. We've been using BuzzSumo for at least 10 years. They have a great question analytics, question research feature when they collect questions from Reddit, Quora, everything that's now ranking. And they also do that for related queries as well, like semantically related. And we've been doing that for many years. So yes, we have been having that conversation with the clients, saying it's not just about clicks. It's not about where you're ranking. Yes, we will track rankings for you, because most clients still want us to do that. Yes, we will track now AI overview visibility for you as well, but it's not just your domain. It's the whole, for us, it's SERP management problem, because we are paying attention to search results, not just organic at this point, because all of that influencing buying journeys. And one other note I would like to have, we have publishers as clients as well. And for those people, we don't have good answers for now. We know that cross-channel marketing for commerce brands is pretty clear. It's nothing completely new. You need to be everywhere to meet your clients. What are publishers supposed to be doing with those, without those clicks? This is a problem that we will also be collectively figuring out at some point as well, because they are losing clicks, but they are running display ads and PPC, paid ads as well, and they are reliant on those clicks. So I'm not completely I'm not saying that nothing is happening. Of course, everything is happening. Of course, everything is changing. I'm sure that I'm happy that Google is not going to be the only discovery channel at this point. There will be other ways to discover brands and products. But I'm also saying that we don't really have good answers in many ways, including what do we count instead of clicks, we as agencies? Or what do we measure instead of clicks and rankings? What do we tell clients who are reliant on clicks, like publishers, big publishers and smaller publishers? We just had a question, I guess, in our Q&A about that as well. What do smaller publishers, niche publishers are going to do losing those clicks? So we don't have all the answers yet, but I'm sure we will going to figure this out at some point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating intersection to listen to both of you speak on topics, because everyone has kind of arrived at a very similar, if not nearly identical conclusion, but coming from a different lens. And I think when you see two really sharp people saying different journeys arriving at the same conclusion, that's the indicator, whether it was we're arriving here or you should have already arrived here, then I know that was a metaphor. That's when you poke that's when you go, okay, hold on a second, I should be paying attention to this. So the future is really, I think, fantastically well defined by both of you today. And so number one, I'm going to say thank you both. And number two, I'd love to end with a prediction in this space. It could be how you think it plays out. It could be what you think is coming next. It could be an unexpected twist or turn. that people aren't sure, I'm happy to throw my hat in there as well and predict something. The timeframes are whatever you want. I'd say maybe at least 6 to 12 months from now, because that just makes predictions more fun. So does anyone want to take a stab first? Also, I'm realizing as I'm saying this for everybody in the audience, no prep work was done. I did not say that I was going to say this. This is definitely something you usually prep people that you're going to ask them about, but I did not. So this is 100% on the fly. Sorry about that. But if somebody wants to take a first shot at that.
Well, Bart is muted, so I'll have to do that. If we talk about 6 to 12 months, everyone, we will all lose some traffic. That's my prediction. We will all lose traffic. If we going a little bit further than that, and that's my more like hope than prediction, is that Google is losing its domination, that we will have people using many more ways to discover and learn brands and products online. And at that point, I hope instead of SEO, it will be called something like organic discoverability optimization or something like that, findability, because it's not going to be just search. It's going to be other ways that people will discover us, our clients, by researching related problems and just doing their research online in different ways. So those are two my predictions.
Fantastic predictions. I love them both. Anne is actually calling for the death of SEO, but only in name, only in name, only in name. I appreciate that. Bart, what do you got for us?
Wow, I didn't see this question coming. I have a lot of predictions, but I'm gonna want to go with one. So I feel like one prediction that I'm the most confident is going to happen is that we'll switch from tools to skills and basically using agents as our proxy. And this is slowly happening. And I think we might see that people in the audience have been 6 to 12 months and AI agents doing my tasks. I have a lot of my agents doing my, I have a briefing before each every call, like within significant amount of info about someone who's, I'm going to talk to, including like the previous posts, like my email history. We can have already with the technology significant changes in our quality of life. But this is now more in like a DIY or nerdy people space. But there are more and more startups. If we look at fundings this year, AI agents were like #1. And if we look at NVIDIA's CEO, if we look at Sam Altman, anyone else, they're all like very bullish on that. So having a set of not just one-shot AIs where we go to ChatGPT, ask a question, get an answer, I think this is going away. This is a very already slow and old school way of using AI. But having like solutions like Crew AI or something else where we have some either set of agents or a group of agents acting on our behalf with our preferences, our setup is already here. It's just not the adaptation is the second thing. But at the same time, we use Perplexity, which is a set of agents. Anyhow, where we're going to go is switch to skills rather than tools. Our tools, like my SaaS companies, will not be used by humans in a year, I think, as much as they are. This is still going to happen, but more and more, we're going to have APIs or other forms of plugging in, but because we all have our own interfaces. And this is already being built, not a crazy vision. And it's more of a prediction of what's going to be adapted more than what's going to be built, because we have the tech and it's happening. So I think soon we're going to basically be buying skills from the web. So my prediction is very mainstream in here, and that's going to change, and we'll not be interacting with websites as much unless we need to for leisure, for fun. We're going to probably interact with Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Like that's still happening. But anywhere we don't have to be, where we don't have to do research, this is easily offloaded. So I think this is going to be a year of the first step of offloading our boring stuff from our daily lives to the cloud.
Okay, a bold prediction. I'm going to throw mine in. Google AI Overviews wins. They win. They come back and win. It's a bold prediction. We'll see what happens. And Bart, thank you both so much for joining me today. To everyone watching still with us in the present or future, thanks so much for coming and hanging out. Hopefully you got some clarity around how the future of everything, GPT, LLM, and AI overviews and more plays out. Thanks all. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's a pleasure.